Hello and welcome to the 34th episode of the Subject Podcast. I am Michael, one of your hosts, and this is Chris, the other guy. What up?
Well, welcome back. You sound very formal there. I don't know.
Oh, it's a very formal podcast.
Yeah, sure. We'll go with that.
I mean, if you're not sitting there in a tank top, shorty shorts, you got maybe socks on and some thongs. You're sitting outside.
Socks and thongs, bro.
Yeah, it's both.
That's a brave
You're
fashion
going for
choice.
it. Well, I mean, you've got
brave.
the outfit. You're feeling high and might tonight. You got your brewski or glass of wine, whatever you're feeling at the moment.
Feeling high in temperature. It's
Yeah.
bloody
Oh,
hot.
it's so hot.
So hot in Australia right now, especially Queensland. I know. I saw a thing on Facebook today where it's actually snowing in parts of Tasmania, which
Well,
I'm a little bit jealous of. I'm not going to lie.
well, it doesn't snow in this part of Queensland.
It doesn't snow anywhere in Queensland. This is not the kind of place that you would find snow.
Well, I don't know. I feel like if it gets cold enough and maybe it hails lightly.
To be fair,
maybe.
it did snow somewhat, quote unquote, in higher reaching parts of the state during winter. It got cold enough to snow overnight, but then it thawed out by morning.
Well, I guess lucky them.
So kind of technically did snow, but this snow was like daytime snow.
Daytime snow would be nice.
It would be nice, and it is nice.
It is nice.
Yeah.
I know it's nice.
It's fun. Anyway, we're not talking about snow today.
Anyway.
Going off on tangents as we are wont to do
Yeah.
every single week.
Well, look, here's another day of it. Here we go. Let's
Here's
jump
another week of
straight into
tangents.
this.
Get ready for it, people.
So we've look, everyone in Australia at the moment should know about this, and this is the tweet that came out from a Chinese official with a fake photo of an Australian soldier basically murdering a Afghan child.
It's not even a photo. It's an altered image.
Yeah, it's so obviously photoshopped. Like it's nothing,
Like that soldier looks way out of proportion. Like even if it's like a down angle on the camera, it just looks way out of proportion.
Yeah, but it's still, it's
obviously fake.
Yeah, it's obviously fake, but it's an image that people have seen and are now like, what?
Yeah, exactly.
What is this? People who are easily, misled by a photo, or people who want to believe it, or people who don't know to believe it or not, so they go to believe it, I guess.
Yeah. China also released a list of grievances with Australia. There's 14 of them. And I'm going to point out the funnier ones, I guess, which is thinly veiled allegations against China on cyber attacks without any evidence, referring to the cyber attacks that the government was under. I think it was a couple of months ago by now. Which I find rather funny because they're like, hey, we didn't do it, but you also need to prove that we didn't do it. Number 13 on this list is calls for an independent inquiry into COVID-19. So that's their grievance with Australia, is that we've called for an independent review.
Well, yeah, we did.
We did. Number 8 is banning Huawei technologies and ZTE from the 5G network that's coming to Australia soon. Which, I mean, Huawei and ZTE are both run by the Chinese government. So both of those technologies potentially could have surveillance equipment in them.
Yeah,
I
would say unlikely. I feel like if there was that kind of threat, then they would, investigate all these things as they come into the country.
This is true.
But so the Chinese embassy in Canberra has dismissed anger over the release of the fake war crimes photo because they think that Australians are just quote unquote overreacting.
Okay.
So they're like, we don't care. You need to
don't
calm
really
down. And Australia's like,
No,
we get
clearly
angry now.
Well, I mean, yeah, if somebody posted a photo of you that was altered to show you in a poor light, as it were,
Yeah.
I'd be quite upset about that too. I'd be like, hang on, I don't slit the throats of children carrying lambs. That's not me.
Well,
Obviously, that's
no.
not me because I don't have a knife in my hand and I'm not
No.
currently killing a child.
No. Well, there was there's a Chinese embassy spokesperson that said the rage and roar of some Australian politicians and media is nothing but misreading and overreaction to Mr. Zhao's tweet. So the Chinese government are basically saying, nah, it's just your politicians and your media saying it's a big deal, blah 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 blah, making it crazy.
Well, I mean, they then posted another couple of cartoons. I want to say cartoons because they're all altered images.
Yeah.
And links to these articles that we're quoting off of as well will be in the description, so you can go have a look at a couple of these images yourself. And like, China's just refusing to apologize for these cartoons. They in one image they attack Scott Morrison. One of the newer images that's been released is a boy painting with what seems to be blood, and there's a group of journalists around him, all obviously taking photos, and Scott Morrison's off in the background leaning over a dead body, pointing at this painter saying that he should apologize. It's really apparently it's Beijing's view that Scott Morrison should focus on a recent war crimes report which contained allegations that 25 Australian soldiers unlawfully killed 39 Afghan civilians and prisoners, rather than stoking nationalism, quote unquote, by directing his anger towards China.
Yeah.
Which is pretty much verbatim what he's doing, is just redirecting anger from war crimes that Australians have committed to, China's attacking my personal image. Get them.
Pretty much.
So, Scott Morrison, stop being a little bitch. You took it when Australians made fun of you. Why can't everybody else make fun of you?
Yeah, the embassy were basically just saying that the Australians we should take up all the crimes that we did do and just say it did happen.
Yeah, that happened. We're sorry for it. Let's move on.
Yeah,
that's literally all we have to do, man. Let's just go. Yeah, it happened. I'm sorry. It's fucked. People responsible for it should be punished.
Yeah, well, I agree. They
Naughty.
They definitely should. And, depending on how bad the crimes were and what they did, punishment should be dealt out, accordingly.
Accordingly, exactly.
But,
There's no...
I do kind of feel like ScoMo is just going, all right, things with China are really bad right now. I don't think the Liberal Party is going to be in the next federal election. So if we fuck this up really hard, then we'll get Labour stuck in the middle of it.
And then we can blame Labour on it.
And then we can come back.
Yeah, we can come back in the next election and say, Labour destroyed our relationship with China. How can you trust Anthony Albanese? He can't even keep a relationship with his closest neighbour. Is what I'm guessing the ads are going to be like.
Okay.
or just attack ads going, Anthony Albanese hates his neighbours. How can you trust the man? Vote 1, Liberal National Party of Australia. Authorised by the Liberal government, Queensland.
Yeah, pretty much.
The really fast text talk.
Yeah.
The back of the ads.
I feel like it's just getting like we said this 5 months ago that things were just going to get worse with China, and it's
getting
happening.
worse.
We called it. It's happening in front of us, and it's.
Do you think it's going to get worse than this?
Yes.
Do you think it's going to keep going down?
Yeah, we've already stopped heaps of trade with China. We're now going to India for a lot of our stuff now.
Yeah,
and Japan,
which are. Japan's obviously a little bit closer, but it's a very small nation comparatively to China.
Yeah.
India is obviously a huge nation with a lot of people, but that is also a considerable distance further than China is.
Yeah.
It's going to cost.
But
more.
India wants to be the next China.
Well, that's
India
good.
wants to take it all.
Good on it.
And then they'll prosper. China's doing pretty well.
Can you imagine the future of Indian vehicles if they go the same way as China? Like right now, Indian-made vehicles are. I'm sorry, guys, but they're not the best. Let's be honest here. They're not the best made things in the world. I'm not saying that they're bad things. They're just not the best.
Yeah.
So if they continue to grow economically and technologically, then to like keep up and be the next China,
Yeah.
then I can just imagine that there's going to be this huge shift towards metropolitan life instead of rural life in India, like there has been in China, where most of the people live in the cities. And that's where a lot of the stuff is made. So I'm thinking that it's going to happen in India, and sort of history is just going to repeat itself. Going to have like really flashy cars in India. Not that there's not already, but there's going to be more of them.
Yeah.
Fucking everywhere. And they're going to be Indian made because their economy is going to be one of the strongest in the world.
Well, apparently, New Zealand is actually kind of siding with us.
Yeah. Well, we are New Zealand's closest neighbour, so that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess. They kind of should side with us.
What with the Anzacs?
No, well,
Australia New Zealand Army Corps.
Yeah.
That's
okay. I'm just saying that their prime minister right now is kind of, I don't know, they're not so much taking the side of Australia, but they're kind of like going out and saying that they shouldn't have posted something that was a lie, like the photo,
true.
They shouldn't have done it in the first place.
yeah. If it's a lie, don't fucking post it.
Yeah.
Duh. It's not that hard to not post something. It's actually harder to post something than not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's interesting.
I think, you know what I think it was? I think it was China trying to see if they could coax a response out of our politicians.
Well,
and you know what? It worked.
So New Zealand has registered directly with the Chinese authorities on their concern over the use of that image. It was an unfactual post, and of course that would concern them. So
yeah, of course.
So
well, that and considering New Zealand's flag looks a lot like ours, so it could be that they're also trying to look out for their own image as well, because obviously with New Zealand having the blue background, the Southern Cross in the top left corner, or the Union Jack top left corner, Southern Cross bottom right hand corner.
Yeah,
it's a very similar.
It's similar.
Flag.
Like, I mean, I can tell it apart. I feel like most people probably.
Yeah, that's because you lived in Australia for your entire fucking life,
but,
dickhead.
I guess other countries. Well, I mean, depending on how good you are with your flags, I guess. If you understand your flags, I guess you'd be right.
Yeah. Who's up to date with the national flags of the world?
Well, I know a few.
Hit us up in the comments. Let us know how many national flags you can name.
Well, I guess it kind of comes down to how many countries you can name, really.
This is true, but if you can identify their flags, then it's even better.
Yeah, that'd be cool. All of them.
All of them. We need proof. We need like a Word document.
Several hundred. No Google.
No, you're not allowed to Google.
Well, no, if you're Googled.
We'll definitely know somehow.
Yeah, well, let us know what you think about what's going on here. Like, is it worth our overreaction, or do you think we're not overreacting, or do you think they just shouldn't have posted it in the first place?
Or do you think China has a point?
Or you tell us.
Yeah, you tell us. Tell us what you think. Moving on. In case of something that is more of an international disaster, talking about celestial objects becoming suddenly not celestial anymore.
Yeah.
NASA has released recently some plans for what they would have to do in the case of a massive asteroid.
Well,
it's a collision course with the Earth.
It's basically they have a 5-step plan on what they would do if they somehow discovered that there was this huge meteorite that was over a mile wide plummeting towards Earth.
Basically the size of the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs.
Pretty much. So this is like a 5-step plan of what they would do. So step 1, a text would go out to a group of no more than 12 scientists. And then what they will do, so it would basically say, asteroid is approaching calling for a team assembly, and like from NASA, they would send it out to those unique scientists, just calling in the team to be like, okay, there's an asteroid coming.
Get
here
in
we go.
We need to solve some problems here.
And then, so step 2, the scientists would then start tracking the asteroid. So they would start to see, how close, how far, how fast, how big, and they'll use all the satellites and arrays on the planet to scan for it as it's coming, which is, I guess, would be terrifying because you'd be like, okay.
Well, I mean, there's only a certain amount of time that you get to detect asteroids coming on a collision course with Earth, because I know that there was one that was detected a few years ago that was on a collision course, and NASA only noticed it a couple of days out from when it was supposed to hit us.
Oh, sorry.
But it was like extinction level event asteroid.
Yeah.
Obviously, it just barely missed us. We're all still alive and here today, thankfully, because that asteroid didn't hit.
Yeah, right.
But it's scary that it was only 2 days out that they actually noticed that it was coming.
Yeah, that's terrifying to think that, you know, literally you'd only get maybe 24 hours notice.
Yeah, exactly. And if there's a blind spot in any of those satellite images, then that's just more space for that asteroid to be where we're not going to see it, which is terrifying to think of.
It's pretty scary. So step 3, right? Step 3 is they will nail down the object's size and then the time. So they'll like do all the calculations and they will perfectly have it set, ready. We know exactly when, we know exactly how big.
Yeah, this is how fast it's going.
Yeah.
This is when it'll hit.
And then step 4 is when they confirm that it's inevitable, that it's coming.
It's going to hit
how
us.
big the impact is going to be. And then step 5 is that NASA will then issue a public statement. So then they will then address to the world essentially and say, look, here it comes. It's happening.
Put your head between your knees and kiss your bum goodbye.
So, and then basically what would happen then is then all the, probably the UN would then come together and they will all discuss a way of protecting the Earth, whether it be, letting it hit and then we do something to hide from it, or, we somehow deflect the asteroid, which they do have some ideas on how to move it.
We can use explosives to alter its course.
Yeah. So, it's very rare that one of these asteroids would hit us.
Oh yeah, the Earth is tiny.
NASA estimates that a 1 mile wide asteroid only hits Earth once every million years.
Is that when
it's an asteroid?
Is that when an astronaut and an asteroid have sex and create a baby?
No, I think it's when an astronaut is holding an asteroid.
It becomes an astronaut.
An astronaut, right?
You say so, buddy.
If the astronaut is like riding the asteroid, it's an astronaut. It's an astronaut.
Watch out! It's a double-decker astronaut.
Oh, I'm scared. So yeah, I mean, like the likelihood of this happening is minimal. Once every million years. Where are we in that cycle?
That means we're kind of due for one.
We got another 1,000 years to go. At least should be right.
Okay.
I say so. We'll be okay. I feel like we'll be okay.
I feel like in our lifetime we might not see that happening.
Yeah. But NASA, they're not going to take any chances. So
preparing for the worst.
Which is good exactly. So over years and years gone, they've been running tests and simulations, for this exact situation. Sizes of astronauts, sizes of asteroids. God damn it happened again. Are
they astronauts or asteroids?
I'm actually dying. My brain. This is blowing my mind. So yeah, they've been running simulations for years now on what they would do depending on the size or speed.
Is that if a 1 mile astronaut came plummeting to Earth?
Oh, dude! If a 1 mile astronaut came plummeting to Earth,
like that Rick and Morty episode where he expanded the homeless guy.
So, they have a lot of ideas on what they might do to deflect this because
Okay.
it's all they can really do. Is
Sounds like
deflect,
nukes are about
you know
to
what I
be
mean?
a solution here.
So they think firing lasers at the asteroid.
Okay,
If
but
strong enough lasers.
lasers are
apparently.
photons, aren't they? Super
don't know
focused
if
photons. Like, you're going to shoot light at it. It's like shining a torch on an asteroid.
Depends on
It's not
how
gonna really do
powerful the
much.
laser is, maybe.
I mean, yeah, but it's all just condensed light. It has no mass. It's not supposed to be able to have an effect on anything, right? That's my understanding of lasers and,
Well, I
and
mean,
how they work.
it generates heat.
It does generate heat, but then everything generates heat.
Well, I mean, enough to light something on fire, so it can get hot enough.
I don't
So if the
understand
laser
the full
is
mechanics of it.
strong
obviously.
enough, I mean, I don't know.
I don't know the mechanics of it, man. I just know that explosions create shockwaves, but they don't exist in space, so
So
it's
apparently,
going to send shockwaves through the matter.
slamming a spacecraft.
Yeah,
So just
that makes sense.
a huge fucking rocket,
Yeah.
straight into it. Detonating a bomb next to it,
There you go.
so that way it just pushes it with the shock wave.
Yeah.
And then even sending a spacecraft into orbit around it to help, change its trajectory.
Okay.
Which
I could
is
see
that could be
It'd
interesting.
be affected by the shuttle's mass,
Yeah.
and so that could theoretically work, and then you could go from orbiting the asteroid back to orbiting the Earth.
Yeah, it would be pretty. That would be smart if they could send something big enough to actually orbit and then send
It would
off its
have to
path.
be a huge
Yeah.
fucking spaceship, man. Be a huge one, and it'd probably deplete most of our resources. But hey, if nobody dies, then that's a win.
Yeah, right. There's a quote here from the Science Mission Directorate Associate Administrator, and he says, "It's not a matter of if, but when we will deal with such a situation." Because they know it's gonna happen.
It's an eventuality. We just got to prepare for it.
Exactly.
Is I think what he's saying.
Yeah, he's basically saying it's gonna happen. We just have to be ready for it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
There you
can't
go.
wait for that to happen.
Yeah. Now you know that if in the worst possible case scenario, NASA has a plan for us.
NASA's
Don't worry,
ready.
guys.
Don't worry. Don't stress. NASA's got you.
NASA's got us covered.
Please. There's not much we can do about it.
Good to know some space nerds have my back.
Yeah, they got rockets. But it's
They
just
got rockets
it's
out
just
there.
nerds and billionaires, man. It's a nerd billionaire world.
Yes.
Hmm.
I mean, they would save our lives, so we just go.
I mean, they could even
Nerd.
maybe like move the International Space Station into the path of it to try and like knock it, even though it'd
Dude,
be
there
close
are people
enough.
living on that
Yeah,
space
well,
station.
what 7 to 7 billion? Let's be real.
Bruh.
Anyway, send them out into orbit, and then they out of our orbit to, like, you know what I mean? Or maybe they move into like a closer orbit, so then they can slingshot themselves around and then hit it.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I get where you're coming from, but I feel like that would maybe
See,
have to be
NASA's got a plan.
programmed into it. Yeah, NASA has a plan. Why are you trying to speculate?
I'm just saying, NASA's got a plan, man. That's a pretty good plan in my head. I'm sure NASA's thought of it at some point.
I'm sure they thought of it and gone, no, we should probably not sacrifice human lives for this. We're trying to save people, not kill other people.
What are you doing? Well, if it's okay, we can't save everybody, so we're gonna save the people we can.
I mean, yeah, I get the
And then you tell the
it's for the
7
greater
people,
good
look,
and
it's you or the human race. What is it gonna be? And
they're
go,
going to
"Us."
choose us. This is not going to be, I choose the human race. I choose to sacrifice
I want
myself.
not to die.
You know,
Well, you're
I
gonna
don't want to
die
die
anyway,
today,
stooge.
Stooge. I doubt they're going to choose for themselves. In that kind of situation, I think you'd want to
I don't know.
survive.
I feel like they will, because you're dead anyway. So
I mean, yeah, if the Earth gets destroyed, there's nobody coming up to get you.
no, you're stuck there.
Yeah. On that depressing note, let's move on.
Rip.
Let's not imagine the movie Gravity with Sandra Bullock, even though that was a great movie.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, what would happen if you got left alone up there?
Sucks.
Terrifying. It would suck. But anyway, onto things and people that didn't suck.
No.
We're going to go back in time
Ooh. Doc, where are we going?
We are going back to the medieval ages. We're going to have a look at some knights that were fucking badasses. I'll be honest with you. Some crazy ass dudes.
Right.
Some were really high ranking noblemans, all the way up to actual kings. So there's no real limit for craziness in the medieval ages. These knights, first of all, were elite soldiers, so already they have years and years of training, both on foot, on horseback, with armor, without armor, poles, axes, pikes, all that sort of stuff. They're basically like your special forces nowadays. But back in them days, yeah, they were the scourge of the battlefield.
Yeah, they always had like heavy armor.
Yeah, especially when they ride in with their heavily armored horse, and them in heavy armor. They've got their spear ready, and they just plow through.
Yeah, horses are trained back then to just mow people down.
Yeah,
they don't stop for no one.
They were trained to run into people and just knee them out of the way, basically.
Yep, and that would kick me out of the way for sure.
Yeah.
Knights kind of. Sometimes their armor was too heavy, and when they were knocked down, that was it. They couldn't even get back up.
This is true, but knights didn't always wear their heavy armor.
No.
Sometimes they go for like a lighter setup with a chainmail and a couple of plate pieces around their set, which would make for a lighter, more maneuverable setup. Basically, they could wear daggers, two swords, and all that kind of shit, which was fun. First up on the rank is the Black Douglas. He was a ruthless raider.
You a dog, man. Black Dog.
Black Douglas was his name. He was a Scottish knight, and he helped Robert the Bruce win Scottish independence from England back in the way.
Badass.
Yes. So James Douglas rose to prominence at a key inflection point in Scottish history. Obviously, the First War of Scottish independence in the late 13th and early 14th centuries. Though less known than his countryman William Wallace, who is what everybody thinks of when they think of Scottish independence. Mm-hmm. If you've seen the movie Braveheart, you know who William Wallace is, or was rather. Douglas was a key player in the events that ultimately placed Robert the Bruce on the throne of Scotland. Douglas teamed up with Robert in 1306 after Robert's forces had been defeated by the English at the Battle of Methven. Beaten but unbowed, Robert retreated into the hills with his remaining forces to wage guerrilla warfare against the English, which back then was basically them standing behind a tree with a bow or a knife, waiting for someone to walk past and going, "Ha!
Got him! Run away!"
That's the scariest game of hide and seek you'll ever play. I'll tell you that much.
It would suck. It would suck just being in the medieval times. You know, going for a casual stroll. Everything's cool. It's all good in the neighborhood. Next thing you know, you've got 3 dudes with a knife. And then you're just dead. They don't care. They're like, who's gonna catch him?
Yeah, exactly.
There's gonna be forensics going down. Doesn't
exactly.
make sense.
No one's going to know. I was like, oh, it looks like he got stabbed. Oh, well.
Oh, has he got any money on him?
Yeah.
Took that too.
Let's leave him for the birds. Douglas proved his mettle by executing daring, effective raids against the English forces. So he was obviously known for his guerrilla tactics. Be able to go in, hit the English really hard, take what they needed, and get the hell out of there. Because they knew that the English were better armed and armoured. So they needed that guerrilla warfare to actually gain resources.
Sneak
attacks, exactly. This is when he earned himself the nickname The Black. So it's because he would wear black, I guess, in these raids. Make it harder for you to see. Pretty much, yeah.
Scottish ninja.
Ginger
Douglas, ninja.
This is true. I don't know if he was ginger or not, but we'll go off of that. Let's do that. Apparently, Douglas also targeted his ancestral home, the Douglas Castle, which had been occupied by the English. Sneaking in with a small force on Palm Sunday, Douglas ambushed the English garrison as they left church services, taking many of them by prisoner. Douglas and his men then enjoyed the meal that had been prepared for the garrison, which is fucking
delicious.
Boss. He just goes, takes most of the garrison prisoner,
Thank
and then,
you.
then takes their lunch. What a badass! Hey, thanks for giving us your freedom. By the way, we're going to take your food too.
Oh, the chicken
so
looks
you know.
pretty good.
This ruthless, cold-blooded excursion went down in legend as the Douglas Larder, because obviously he raided the Douglas Castle Larder, and it was the first of 3 assaults Douglas committed on his erstwhile home. So yeah, this guy was basically just in it for just getting back at his family, for the most part. He was ostracized by his family before he joined with Robert the Bruce, and then decided, you know what, the best action is to take? Join the Scottish and see if I can't fuck up my family home at the same time.
And eat their lunch.
And eat their lunch. Number 2 on the list, William Marshall, legendary jouster, whose achievements inspired Arthurian legend. So, you know, King Arthur, all that kind of stuff. This is the guy that inspired a lot of it.
No, mate, it's real. Didn't you know King Arthur was real?
Mate, if a lady of a lake came up and just handed me a sword, I'd be quite skeptical about said sword.
I wouldn't be. There's a damn lady in the lake. I'd be like, oh, okay. I've heard this story before. Here we go. I am now King of England. Cool.
Sure.
No one would believe me though.
No, exactly. No one would believe you. If you had to pick a candidate for definitive medieval knight, you might be tempted to select William Marshall, who was the first Earl of Pembroke. So he's in the nobility, but he's not really that high up. William had a rough start early in life. A younger son of a lord, he got caught up in a mid-12th century succession crisis at the age of 6. His father's castle was besieged, and William was taken prisoner to be used as leverage to force a surrender. William's father, clearly not angling for Father of the Year, obviously,
did not give a shit.
Yeah, I still have the hammer and the anvil with which to forge still more and better sons.
Wait,
how much
you got yourself caught? Nah, not my kid. Not my kid.
I've still got testes that work. I've still got a wife.
I'll make another.
I'll just make another son. That was his dad's ideology. But William managed to survive, and by the age of 12 was being trained as a tournament jouster. He was one of the greatest champions of that deadly sport, winning over 500 bouts in his lifetime.
That's pretty good.
Which is a really good track record. William's prowess was as impressive on the battlefield as in the jousting tournaments. He frequently lent his sword in battle during the squabbles among King Henry II and his sons, and was a loyal supporter of King Henry II's son, Henry the Young King, who is not King Henry III.
No.
Different things.
Yeah.
Different people. Once William was in a skirmish against forces led by young Henry's brother Richard, the future King Richard the Lionheart.
Mm-hmm.
During the melee, William unseated Richard from his horse. He had the prince at his mercy, but declined to finish him off. The friendship between William and his king, as well as rumours that he was having an affair with the young king's wife, Queen Margaret, have led some to speculate that William was a historical model for the literary character of Sir Lancelot. So that's where he was inspired Arthurian legend there. In addition to being a formidable soldier, William was a skilled diplomat. He was a key negotiator in the talks that led to the adoption of the Magna Carta, and his signature visible in the document right underneath King John's.
Wow.
He lived to 70. And
70
at the time,
back then, wow.
At the time, was still riding in battle to service his king.
Jeez.
So he was still out there fighting at 70.
Badass.
What a badass.
That's badass.
How cool. This is another really funny one. I can't remember. This guy was involved in the 100 Years' War, I think. His name is French, so forgive my pronunciation. His first name is Bertrand, and I cannot pronounce his last name. I am sorry, French listeners, and I know there are some of you out there. I'm just gonna decline to try it. Here you go, Mike. Yeah, have a try.
Ooh.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's like
That's a doozy.
Goslian? Goslin? Goslin?
Gershwin?
Gershwin?
Gershwin? I don't know.
Goslin? I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, but the 100 Years' War obviously was a war that lasted quite a while, and it produced remarkable knights on both the French and English sides. If England's Black Prince Edward struck terror into the hearts of his opponents, so did France's Bertrand. I'm just going to call him by his first name. Because I'm sorry. I'm
Girl,
sorry.
Betty.
Reputedly short and unattractive, he didn't cut the romantic figure that some knights did. Fittingly, he came up the hard way as a squire and a mercenary captain. He wasn't knighted until 1354, when he was well over 30 years old.
Damn.
In service to the new king of France, Charles V. He helped his beleaguered country recover from a number of losses it had suffered to the English in the 1340s and 1350s. First, he had to stave off the aggression from an English-backed rival, Charles the Bad of Navarre. He met the Navarrese forces near Holbeck in 1364. Despite being outnumbered 2-1, he still executed a bold flanking maneuver with cavalry to turn the tide. So his forces outnumbered 2-1.
Yeah.
He sends a final cavalry charge to try and flank the enemy, and it works. Turns the tide of the battle. He ends up winning.
Nice.
Badass.
Nice.
A subsequent,
Big brain.
yeah, big brain, enormous brain, and huge pee-pee. Gotta say that.
Okay.
Must have had balls the size
Big
of space hoppers.
Definitely.
He apparently had a falling out with King Charles V, but the king relented after he succumbed to a fever, after Bertrand succumbed to a fever, and ordered his loyal constable buried among the French kings at the Basilica of Saint-Denis, which I think is a pretty high honor for someone that was only a squire.
That's, yeah, like, he did pretty well.
He did pretty
Coming
well.
up from a squire, like, he didn't start off noble or anything like that.
Exactly. He started at the very bottom.
Yeah.
So he worked his way up and proved his mettle multiple times. Next up on the list is someone from the Ottoman Empire. His name is John Hunyadi, and he was actually opposing the Ottoman Empire. He was arguably one of the greatest European military minds of the 15th century. A skilled tactician, he gained valuable experience while battling the rebellious Hussites and Bohemian religious reformers who predated Martin Luther by more than a century. And he made effective use of firearms as well. So flintlock pistols, cannons, all that sort of stuff. He was sort of one of the pioneers in using that sort of technology at the time.
Yeah.
All this experience fighting and campaigning in Italy. He went to Transylvania. He was serviced in the Holy Roman Empire. So dude's been around.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah, he's traveled, that's for sure.
All this experience would pay off when Hunyadi squared off against his greatest foe, the Ottoman
Hemorrhoids.
Empire. No, the Ottoman Empire.
Fair enough.
Which were a bunch of Turks. People from Turkey. Don't get offended. That's just what they were called. Turks.
I'm not offended.
I know you're not, but some people listening might be.
Yeah. Maybe you shouldn't have said it.
This is true. I shouldn't have said it. Anyway, moving on. Having already subjugated much of the Balkans in the previous century, the Turks, there it is again, led by the formidable Sultan Murad II, spent much of the 1430s consolidating their hold in Serbia while probing the Hungarian border along the Danube for weaknesses. The Ottomans possessed a centralized military structure, powerful logistical system, and an elite class of soldiery, the Janissaries, which were basically like their version of knights.
Yeah.
Um,
Big ass scimitars.
Big ass scimitars. By the early 1440s, Pope Eugenius IV was seeking to organize a new crusade that would advance against the Turks, not only liberating the Balkans from the Ottoman yoke, but relieving pressure on the beleaguered Byzantine Empire, now reduced to the city of Constantinople and some surrounding lands.
Yeah.
So
it really pushed them back.
Yeah, so the Ottoman Empire basically destroyed the Byzantine Empire, and the Holy Roman Emperor, the Pope, I should say, not the Holy Roman Emperor, because they're two different things.
Yeah.
The Pope was trying to back the Byzantines in that era, trying to get them back up on their feet. Didn't work.
Nope.
It fell to Hungary to lead this defense, but Hungary was in disarray. Its King Albert II had perished unexpectedly by illness, and his widow, Elizabeth of Luxembourg, triggered a civil war by trying to hold power as a regent to her infant son. So basically,
Fair enough.
Albert II died. Her infant son was next in line. Elizabeth was like, well, he's not 18 yet.
I would be in
I'm
charge.
queen.
Yeah.
And the
They were
nobles
like,
said,
no.
Don't let a woman do that.
The baby's in charge.
Yep. Elizabeth's faction was obviously defeated, and the Hungarian nobles invited the teenage Polish king Vladislav III to rule them. So they've just gotten a Polish king into Hungary. Yeah. So basically Poland and Hungary are under the same monarch now at this sort of time. With Vladislav's blessing, Hunyadi embarked on an epic campaign against the Ottomans, which is known to history as the Long Campaign. His forces defeated the Ottomans repeatedly in 1442, in March and September, and in November in 1443. He deployed war wagons, a sort of mobile fortress that could be positioned as needed at the start of the battle to lay a trap for enemy forces.
Yeah.
So you could basically just sit these things in trees, and the enemy's just walking past you, and you just start firing bows and pistols and whatever you can at them.
Ambush.
Yep. They clashed with the Ottomans at the heart of the Ottoman territory, now led by the Sultan himself, leading his forces at the shores of the Black Sea. Partly thanks to an ill-considered charge by Vladislav, the Ottomans won the day, and Hunyadi barely escaped with his life, which is really crazy. He would return years later, though, for one last hurrah, leading a spirited defense of Belgrade in 1456 against Ottoman forces led by Murad's son, Mehmed II, aka the Conqueror. Who had recently taken Constantinople and hoped to strike deep into the heart of Christian Europe. Hunyadi was victorious, but would perish of plague short time later. His efforts would not be forgotten by Hungarians. His son Matthias would become King of Hungary, and Hunyadi remains a folk hero in Hungary to this day.
That's really cool.
He's obviously very popular in Hungary, and obviously a badass too.
Yeah, badass.
Next up, and this is going to be the second to last one on the list here, we're going to go back to England and have a look at Edward the Black Prince, who was commanding an army by 16.
That's not bad.
So I think that's pretty good. I mean,
how big is the army?
I could barely command a fucking car at the age of 16.
I was probably trained for years leading up to it.
Oh yeah. We'll see how big the army is later on. I'll sort of give you an idea of how big the army is, but we'll get to that.
Okay.
So, Edward the Black Prince was the eldest son of King Edward III. Edward of Woodstock would have become King of England, but perished prematurely. So that's why Edward III became king.
Yeah.
He would pack a punch, though. He had 45 years of military experience, which is a lot of experience for someone at that time. He was named Prince of Wales at age 13 and trained in knighthood even earlier than that. Edward saw his first combat at 16, where he led the English vanguard at the historic Battle of Cressy. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong because that looks like Gaelic, which was in 1346. One of the most important engagements of the 100 Years' War against France. So obviously we're still in that period of time where England and France are just going at each other. The teenage prince was right in the thick of combat and knocked to his knees. He might have been slain, but for the intervention of 2 other knights. England emerged victorious, and Edward's career was off to a roaring start.
So he had his ass saved by 2 guys, and then everyone was like, "Good job!"
And took credit for it.
Yeah, damn.
Which was kind of the thing in the 1300s.
Yeah.
And in that time, it's sort of, you protected the king. No, the king protected himself.
It's kind of like Blackadder did a bit on that, where they walked around after the battle and then started listing off all the names that they had killed. And it's just like, oh, but this guy said he killed him as well. He's like, oh, no, I killed him.
Yeah,
Like,
No, it was me.
Okay.
It was me.
And about 50 peasants or something.
Yeah, exactly. Edward was celebrated in his own lifetime as a model knight and the flower of chivalry.
Yeah.
However, in subsequent campaigns in France, including his victory at Poitiers in 1356, he developed a reputation for ruthlessness. So this is the darkest blot on Edward's reputation comes from his alleged actions after the siege of Limoges in 1370. Angry that the bishop, previously loyal to England, had surrendered the town to French forces, Edward targeted it and perpetrated, according to French chronicler Jean Froissart, a terrible atrocity. And this is a quote from one of his books. It was a most melancholy business, for all ranks, ages, and sexes cast themselves on their knees before the prince, begging for mercy. But he was so inflamed with passion and revenge that he listened to none, but all were put to the sword, wherever they could be found, even those who were not guilty.
This is like, just kill everybody.
Upwards of 3,000 men, women, and children were put to death that day. End quote. Modern historians suggest that his sources were heavily biased against the English because he was French, obviously, and that the toll at Limoges was probably closer to 300 rather than 3,000. Still, it's a terrible atrocity, nonetheless. Kind of not unusual for warfare at that time, though. So it's not really that much of an atrocity, but it's still an atrocity. Nobody really knows how Edward got his nickname of the Black Prince. It wasn't used in his lifetime, so he got it after he died.
Maybe it was the French that called him that.
It probably was. It could have been from his reputation for cruelty, or his coat of arms, which was 3 ostrich feathers on a black background, or his habit of wearing black armor into battle. So, kind of a mixture of all those 3 things, I feel like. And last but not least, we have to look at the man himself that wrote the book on chivalry. So this is a knight named Geoffrey Descharny. He literally wrote the book on chivalry.
Yeah.
And he carried the king's banner into battle, which is a pretty high honor to do back in those days.
I always thought it sucked to carry someone's banner.
Yep, me too. He was a French noble, Geoffrey, however you want to pronounce it. Geoffrey. He was, by all accounts, a very competent knight. The famed chronicler Froissart, that we were talking about before, called him the most worthy and valiant of them all. Obviously, he's a bit biased because he's French himself, but we'll take that with a bit of a squeeze of lemon. But his posthumous and reputation rests on 2 very different pillars: his career as an author and the picturesque manner of his demise. Born in 1306 to the minor French nobility, Descharny rose in French military circles just as the devastating 100 Years' War with England, which I know we said 100 Years' War a few times at the moment, but it was actually 116 years that this
Yeah.
war lasted.
Quite a few people popped up in these years.
So if basically if they talk about this night in the 100 Years' War, it's dude, there's like a century and a bit worth of history there. You
Most
could be
people
talking
didn't
about
live to like
anybody.
50 back then anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So he was coming up in French military circles just as that was sort of starting to get good. De Charnay suffered some reversals. He was captured at Morlaix in 1342 and held for ransom, and was again captured in Calais in 1349. Yet during these
sounds shit.
wait. During these years, his reputation for military courage and diplomatic skill made him a rising star in the eyes of the French king Philip VI, and he was tasked with a pair of singular, albeit very different, honours. Charnay was commissioned to write a series of works explaining the code of chivalry to future knights. He was also tasked with the prestigious and very dangerous job of holding the oriflamme, the king's own standard in battle. So, like you said, holding the king's standard in battle is very dangerous because you're going to get targeted.
Yeah, because
obviously
you got a giant
they
freaking
see-
flag of the king.
Yeah, well, they see the king's coat of arms and they go, that's the king.
I'm
Kill
gonna go
that
over
guy.
there.
Yeah. Charnay's writings have come down to us as a knight's own book of chivalry and are an invaluable historical resource for the study of medieval knighthood. Charnay's book is less about military tactics than about the moral and conceptual dimensions of knighthood,
Yeah.
though he does stress the importance of staying battle-ready and hardened at all times. There is another peculiar intersection with history in Charnay's life. He is the first recorded owner of the Shroud of Turin, which he may have acquired while participating in the ill-fated crusades of the mid-1340s. The greatest honour of Charnay's life, his commission to guard the oriflamme, may have proved his undoing. He carried the royal standard against the English at the Battle of Poitiers in 1356, but he fell in combat that day. Perhaps because whoever had that standard also had a massive target painted on his back, like you said before.
Just got shot with an arrow, probably. Pinged.
Yeah, pretty much. I think
Wow.
that's basically what happened. But there you go. Some badass knights.
Look into some badass history right
Yeah,
there.
exactly. And if you have any other historical figures that you know of that were also badasses, hit us up in the comments.
Yeah.
Links for everything that we've talked about will be in the description as well. So if you're interested, check out those sources.
Check them out. Check out, all our social media. Check out all of our things. We've said this before. We keep saying it every week.
Mate, we've got to say it every single week.
Every single week.
We've got to keep reminding these
look,
people.
guys, look.
We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube because sometimes that uploads properly. We're on Podbean and we're on Spotify.
Yes, find us literally everywhere.
Not literally everywhere.
Don't look us up on iView. We're not there.
No, not yet. Not yet.
And we're not on Vimeo either.
Yet. Just stay tuned, maybe.
Hit that
sometime in
like
the
button.
future.
Hit that subscribe button. And every week, every Thursday, you will
Thursday,
have us here on your ears listening. That is you.
We're not listening. We're talking. We're doing a lot of talking.
We're listening, but to the world. And we interpret that. And we feed that back.
Sure. The world as it was 700 years ago.
Yeah, wasn't it a good time? That's for
I mean,
sure.
It was a great time for those knights because they were getting all famous and shit.
Yeah.
But not a great time for those that were being killed by those knights.
Yeah, that would suck.
Yeah, that would suck.
Anyway, we will see you all next week. Adios.